So emotion coaching is really a style of parenting that takes care of your child's inner emotional world, teaches them about emotions, and teaches them fundamentally that emotions are okay, that all emotions are acceptable, and it teaches them how to handle themselves. And kids that have been emotion coached from early in life will grow up with being better able to self-regulate or to have emotional regulation skills. So they'll be able to calm and soothe themselves down better than if they hadn't been emotion coached. And emotion coaching is useful for all kids, but particularly useful for kids that are sensitive, that have or are prone to have really big emotions and need extra help calming down and learning that emotions are okay and nothing scary is going to happen if we feel our emotions. So why we like it in schema therapy is because it's really an interesting parenting style, I think, in relation to schema prevention. Because when we look at our clients who comes to therapy, a large proportion of our clients have emotional regulation difficulties. We have to look at the growing and alarming high youth suicide rates that we have in Australia and around the world. And part of the problem there is that we don't teach kids early enough and adequately enough how to manage their inner worlds, how to manage their emotions, and how to manage emotional distress. So we tend to learn from a very early age that certain emotions are okay and other emotions are not okay. So the so-called negative emotions like fear, sadness, anger, anxiety, etc., are considered to be negative emotions, and they're considered to be emotions that we don't want to have, we don't want to see. So as parents, we're kind of programmed to, if we see those emotions in our kids, we want to change that emotion. We want to make it all better. We want to shut them down. We don't want them to be angry. We don't want them to be sad. We don't want them to be jealous. We want them to just have lovely, happy, shining, positive emotions all the time. And that's a problem. And because if kids don't learn how to spot, identify, deal with, work through an emotion when they're young, they'll never get those skills. And so it'll be more difficult, really difficult for them as they get older. So because when we think about it, we want to teach kids and young people that no matter what they're feeling, it's okay. That emotions come and go, even if they're really big and even if they hang around for a while, they'll eventually subside. That it's okay. We can be in the depths of one difficult emotion one moment, and then we know that that's going to pass in time and we're going to be experiencing another emotion. So emotions are not permanent. They're temporary like everything else. And emotion coaching gives kids and young kids the opportunity to learn how to appreciate that for themselves and how to notice that even if I just name an emotion, even if I just label it for myself and be mindful to that emotion, then the amygdala can start to calm down and we can help ourselves soothe and self-regulate. And this is a wonderful gift that we can give our children. So what are the 5 steps of emotion coaching? Emotion coaching was developed and brought to the fore by the Gottmans, John and Julie Gottman in the US. It's been researched over the last 30, 40 years, and the outcome studies are all fairly favourable. And they suggest that kids that have been emotion coached learn better, they get into less problems, they're less likely to self-soothe in unhelpful ways, they're more emotionally intelligent, they can regulate themselves, they get on better interpersonally. Generally speaking, they're more able to cope with the ups and downs of life. So when we think about emotion coaching, there are 5 steps, and we can start it with kids as young as any age really, because we can just make it age appropriate. So we can start with just even kids that are toddlers, young toddlers, even 1-year-olds, 18-month-olds. We can just help them understand what they're feeling and just titrate this with more information as they get a little bit older. So if we do that from a really early age, by the time kids are 7 and 8, you really see a big difference in their ability to manage to self-soothe, to calm themselves down when they need to, and to help others do the same. So what are the 5 steps? Well, the first step is 1, to be aware of your child's emotions. So very often we're not in tune, and as psychologists, when we see clients in our clinic, that's one of the first ports of call for us. We want to be in tune with what people are feeling. So when you look at your child, your small child, even your baby, you can just try to notice what they're feeling. How would that emotion be displayed on the outside? That's called their affect. How is sadness? How does sadness look in the face? How does frustration look in the face? How does anger look in the face? Fear, etc. So we can just slowly and gently coach our kids to say, you look like you're feeling really frustrated right now. Oh, or I notice you're looking like you're really sad. Are you sad about something? So just a subtle awareness of how your kids are looking. What do they look like? What emotion do you figure that they might be experiencing? Can you have a guess at it tentatively? So the first step is recognize your child's emotions. That's step number 1. But sometimes we miss that one. Step number 2 is recognize emotions as an opportunity for teaching and connection. As parents, we don't want our children to feel a negative emotion. It hurts us. If your little child has been at school and they've come home and said, oh, such and such didn't want to play with me. I felt sad because someone picked on me today. So, there's a problem in there, sure, that you might want to help solve, sure. But the first thing we've got to do is recognize that we want to relate to our child when they're telling us that. And even though they're having a hard time and experiencing a difficult emotion, we want to go there. We don't want to just say, oh, well, who else can you play with? Oh, well, all right, tomorrow will be a better day. Or don't worry about it so much, you're too sensitive. That probably wouldn't be very effective things to say at all. So we want to really be attuned. Step number 1, we want to recognize what they're feeling. And then step number 2 is we want to use it as an opportunity for connection between the two of us, connection between you and your child. So you would say something like, yeah, I can see that that's made you feel really sad. And did you feel sad when that was happening? I can understand that. I can understand that you would. It probably made you feel really left out. And you can be with that emotion rather than being scared of it, running away from it, dismissing it, or trying to jolly your child up prematurely. You can just connect in that moment, and you can see it as an opportunity. Oh wow, here's an opportunity to emotion coach my child. I don't want to miss this really vital and fundamental opportunity. So the third step is to help your child verbally label their emotions. So neuroscientific studies have found that if we just label what we're feeling, for example, if we label those emotions like fear, anxiety, anger, sadness, then the primitive brain areas of the brain that are really activated when these emotions are experienced in our mind and body, they can quieten down a little bit. So just the very act of labeling an emotion, in other words, just saying, wow, I'm noticing I'm feeling really angry now. I can feel the anger in my body, or I notice I'm feeling really sad. I feel that in my chest now and I'm feeling really heavy. I notice I'm feeling really frustrated. Just the very act of labeling an emotion can help us self-regulate. And we're giving our children a vital and important life skill if we can teach that really, really early on. So step number 3 is help your child verbally label emotions. Now, some of us are really naturally good at labeling our emotions and helping others label theirs. Some of us struggle a little bit more. But if we get in early and help our kids, even our babies and toddlers, begin to think about their emotional world and labeling their emotions, then we're going to do them a huge favour for down the track. So step number 4 is to communicate empathy and understanding, to validate. So we've noticed our emotions, we've used it as an opportunity. Okay, I'll make a connection for my child. I want to relate to them. I'm helping them identify and label those emotions. And then I want to communicate my feelings towards them. I want them to know that I get them. Right? So many of my adult clients will say to me, my parents never got me, or I just didn't feel like they ever saw me or they ever heard me. That's pretty sad. And kids remember that for life. Okay. So it's not enough to say words. We have to really relate. We have to have eye contact. We have to really see the other person. We have to attune. And we have to say that we get it, that we understand. We may not be approving of this. It doesn't mean that we're permissive parents and we just say, oh, whatever goes. It's not that at all. It's just that we're tuning in. So we have our little toddler or our preschooler who, doesn't want to leave the park. Right? So we would say, you don't want to go home right now, do you? You don't want to leave the park. You're frustrated or you're getting annoyed because mummy needs to go home and you want to stay in the park longer. Right? All I'm doing is just listing what's happening for that child. The child instantly feels, oh, well, at least she gets it. I mean, she may not agree with me, but she gets it, right? So you're communicating empathy. And you can then say, I know you're disappointed because I know you love playing in the park so much, but we do have to go. But I really know you're disappointed because I know how much you love playing in this park. I'm understanding. I'm getting it. I'm attuning and I'm validating. Validation is a key interpersonal and emotional regulation skill. This is helpful in all our relationships with family, friends, partners, and children. If we feel validated, that's step number 1. If we feel validated, we feel worthwhile. If we don't validate our children, they will never feel worthwhile. It's essential as a life skill. Our children need to feel that we can see them, that we can understand them. It's not about permissive approval of all their behaviours, but it's about getting them. It's about understanding what they're feeling in that moment and having it as though that matters, as though that is important to you. And, that is so precious. That is a precious gift you can give your children. Communicate empathy and understanding, step number 4. And step number 5 is important, and that's called setting limits and problem solving. So often we'll be doing emotion coaching in the context that there is a problem. Maybe there's an interpersonal problem they're having at school, or maybe there's behaviour that they're misbehaving, that they're having an emotion, but the action that they've acted on their emotion is not appropriate. So sometimes we do need to set limits and or to help solve problems. Now, kids that are only experiencing step 1 to 4 can later on go and have problems. They might become rather self-indulged and entitled. So we don't want to forget step number 5 when appropriate. We have to set limits with our kids, and we can help them solve problems. But often parents want to go to this step really prematurely, and that's not very effective. So it's important to set limits and it's important to help work out problems and to troubleshoot. But we want to do this after we've done those first 4 steps. So setting limits would be any kind of behavioural management and natural consequences for behaviour that's unacceptable. Time in behaviours, getting the child talking to them, trying to look at other people's perspectives and that kind of thing. And problem solving is helping a child work through a problem and saying, well, I had that problem too, and I found it was useful for me to do this, and this. So again, we may not have the answers and the solutions. And one of the biggest protective factors of kids experiencing bullying often is just knowing that at home they've got a secure base. At home, mum or dad or whoever their parents are, get them, right? That they've got their back, they understand. So they can talk to you without you saying, oh yeah, but what did you do to make that other person bully you, for example? Or, so just imagine you came home from work and you had a really crappy day and you said to your partner, oh, you know what, my boss, had a go at me. I just can't stand that guy, or I just can't stand that woman. And you were going on a bit of a rant. And then your partner intercepted and said, yeah, hang on a minute, but what did you do to, peeve your boss off? You must have done something to cause the problem. Well, how do you feel? You certainly don't feel validated. You feel like they're taking their side. So let's use that same tack with our kids. So a kid comes home and has that complaint. Let's go to the emotions first and validate how they're feeling, and then help them problem solve. Then figure out, is there another way of looking at it, or, what could we do next time that might be different? But if people don't feel, and children included, validated and heard first, you're wasting your time. So just like we would like to feel heard by our partners and loved ones, our children want to feel heard by us. So they're the 5 steps of emotion coaching, and really super important, and super important for scheme prevention as well. I hope you enjoyed that.